And hello, everybody. Good morning from my studio in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. Dwight Moody here with Sunday in the House, commentary on life, politics, and the red letter Jesus. Thank you for joining me today for this broadcast. I want to start today by talking about our Tangle Tour 26. We're leaving here. We're starting on Sunday morning with this broadcast, October the 4th, 2018, this fall. We'll have an event or two here in Greenville County, South Carolina. Our first on-the-road event is Thursday of that week. I think it's the 9th or the 8th of October the 8th at Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. This will be, I think, primarily a campus event. We may add a more public event, a book signing somewhere else, but that is on Thursday the 8th. Then we're going to Owensboro, Kentucky, where on Saturday afternoon, the 10th of October, at the Owensboro Museum of Fine Art, we will have a Saturday afternoon exhibition of my son's artwork and the public presentation of his new book about his art. So that's Saturday afternoon. Then we go to Louisville, and then up to Covington, Kentucky, where we will be at the business address in downtown Covington of Kathy Jones Aesthetics. A very different kind of place. We hope to be outside in her garden there on Tuesday evening. Then we go to Lexington, Kentucky. We're still working out the venues and dates there, and then head back to over the mountains to Hendersonville, North Carolina. Hope you'll join us as you can. We are going to live stream all of these events, and we're also going to do kind of a daily travelogue on social media. Our intent is to connect with you, many of you who connect with us either through the weekly newsletter or through this broadcast on Sunday morning. We want to meet you and talk to you. We hope to we will introduce our new publishing venture, the Meeting House Press. We will have 5 or 6 books for sale. We hope you'll bring a little money with you to buy a book. And of course, we hope to have a good time. Not only with our traveling team, there'll be 4 or 5 of us traveling, but we hope as we connect with you, we'll have a good time and enjoy it, make some happy memories as we're on the road. Of course, it'll be just less than a month before the election on the 4th of November, so that'll be on our minds. It will be on everybody's minds, and as a matter of fact, our broadcast will no doubt be a welcome relief from all of the political commentaries that you're going to see every day in October. That's the Tangle Tour of 26. Plan to be a part of it in October of this year. God bless you all. Now, I want to do a little rehearsal of what I spoke about last week, and I'll tell you why. I talked last week about Simon Peter and the great change in his life. The episode is really described in the 10th chapter of the book of Acts. I've taught this material many times over the years. I've been a minister for more than 50 years. I was ordained in 1977. I guess next year will be the 50th anniversary of my ordination. I've taught it many times, but as I was preparing last week and as I taught it last week on this broadcast, some new things caught my attention and emphasized them. So what happened was that Simon Peter went to Caesarea. I want to talk to you just a minute about Caesarea. Caesarea is a beautiful coastal town on the Mediterranean Sea. Beautiful place. Here is an image of the way it looks today. The Caesarea was the main Roman center in the province of Palestine or Judea. That is where the Roman soldiers were. It's where the Roman governor was. It's where the Roman influence was. They built the city, named it after Caesar, Caesarea. And they built the harbor, built water breaks, and in order for the ships from Rome and Italy to come in. It was from Caesarea, that Paul left to go on many of his travels. So I want to show you a reconstructed picture of Caesarea. We don't know exactly how it looked like, of course. There's been a great deal of excavation, but you can see in this picture what the city was like, what the parameters of the wall. It was a walled city. And of course, the harbor was there. And it has been the site of a great deal of archaeological excavation. And I'm going to talk just a minute about this and give a shout out to my grandson, Sam. Sam has lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, has finished high school, will graduate in 11 days. But yesterday he moved to Lexington, Kentucky. So if any of you see that handsome boy, welcome him to Kentucky, back to Kentucky where he was born. He's thrilled to be there. He's very interested in history and archaeology, hopes to study that in college. Told me this past week he'd like to be a history teacher in high school. What a wonderful ambition. But he's very interested in archaeology, and I want to show you an archaeological find from Caesarea. It has been one of the great centers of archaeology over the last, 40, 50 years. But among the things they found in 1961, archaeologists from Italy found what's known as the Pilate tablet. This is an artifact, a stone. It was a sign, really, that they found buried in the rubble that named Pilate as the governor. It is the only extra biblical reference to Pilate. They found a great confirmation of the role that Pilate played in the life of Jesus and in the life of the early Christian people. Very, very famous archaeological find. You never know what you're going to find when you go on an archaeological dig. And it takes long hours of tedious work in the dirt, the dust, the mud, stones, rocks. And sometimes you find pottery. Sometimes you find pieces with lettering on it. The man who was living there the Bible tells us, was named Cornelius. He was a Roman soldier. He was from Italy, and he was a good man. He was seeking after God. He was known as a God-fearer, which was a technical term in the first century, referring to somebody who was drawn to the worship and teaching of Judaism, but did not want to become a Jew. This is true of many religions around the world. People are drawn to religions because they teach morality and they give you a guide for spirituality and worship, but they also have lots of rules and regulations. And some of them, as in the case of Judaism, there are many ethnic guidelines, what you can eat, what you can't eat, what you can wear, what you can't wear, where you can go, where you can't go. And Cornelius, as a God-fearer, did not want to go down that route. But he had heard about Simon Peter and the Jesus movement, and so he called Simon Peter, who was at another village on the coast, and asked him to come up and see him. Now, he didn't call him with a phone. He sent his soldiers down there. to invite Simon Peter to come up to Caesarea. It's about 30 miles from Joppa, where he was, up to Caesarea. How long would it take you to walk that much? Now, I walk 3, 4, 5 miles a day. I walked about 3.5 miles yesterday. We live on the Swamp Rabbit Trail in Greenville County. I get out on the trail. I walk to the northern end of the trail. It ends abruptly right in front of a couple of homes. I walked that far. It was about 1.5 miles, a little more. Walked back. So Simon Peter, as were everybody in his time, they were walkers. They would walk to and from places, and this was a 2 to 3 day walk. How long would it take you to walk 30 miles? I could do it in 2 days. Here's Simon Peter. It had this great experience in Joppa. You remember the experience. He was up praying on the rooftop, a flat rooftop. He was praying in the afternoon. He got hungry, had a vision of all the food coming down. It was unclean food according to his Jewish tradition. He heard a voice saying, Simon Peter, get up and eat. Simon Peter said, I'm not going to do that. These are unclean foods. And the word came back to him, do not call unclean things I have called clean. And he was puzzled over what this meant and how to apply it. He took it as the voice of God, as actually the voice of the risen Lord. In the Bible, the text, these are red letter words. The translators and interpreters assumed this was from Jesus. Now, he walked for 2, maybe 3 days thinking about this. Now, I know I talked about this last week, but this is such an important thing. Not only the importance of walking and how it helps you to think about things, but also mulling over things that happen to you. Why is this happening? And what should I do? And what am I feeling about this? And what do my instincts tell me? And how is this challenging what I've thought for a long time? So Simon Peter, a strict law-adhering Jewish man, walked up to the home of this uncircumcised, unbaptized, what they would call a pagan man, at his home in the Roman town of Caesarea. And then it says this, he goes into the home. Cornelius says, Simon Peter, you've had a great experience. Tell us what's on your mind. And then this text, which I read to you last week from my red letter Bible, then Simon Peter began to speak. I now realize how true it is that God does not show favoritism. There are 2 great things about this text. The content of it, that God receives everybody. How important this is in our world today, where there's so much exclusion of people of a different color, of a different race, a different religion, a different language, a different passport. It is one of the terrible things about our country right now, how we are treating people who are different. Now, the main story this week that illustrates this is of this woman down in Texas who was the superintendent of schools. Put on a hijab. May have been a Muslim. I don't know all the details. But just her association with Islamic life and faith so angered a bunch of Christian parents down there that they raised a ruckus. We don't want anybody different. Anybody who has any kind of Muslim sympathies leading our school district. The woman had to resign. There was so much outcry from Christian people down there. This is an example, a perfect example of what religious people do. All religions, when they try to exclude people who are not of their religion. It's a terrible thing. And it happens all around the world. It's happening in America today too much, too often. So that was part of what Simon Peter was dealing with. How do we receive everybody like Jesus received them? How do we see them as children of God, made in God's image, struggling with the same thing we're struggling with ambitions and hopes and dreams just like we have, of raising a family and staying healthy, staying safe, living in a safe country where you're free to worship, free to work, free to travel, free to convert, free to talk, free to protest. It's hard to find a text in the whole Bible that's not more relevant, that it is more relevant to the issues that we face today. Because in our country, Democrat and Republican and liberal and conservative and Muslim and Christian and secular, Jew, Mormon, we want to draw lines. We want to cut people off. We want to shut people down. We want to say what Peter said when he had that vision, "Not me, Lord. I'm not going to eat that food because it's unclean. I am not going to gather with those people. They're unclean. They're not righteous." But the big thing that struck me out of this text was not that, important as it is. And this is what I emphasized last week. I'm going to emphasize it again because it spoke to me so powerfully. Simon Peter, the first thing he said when he got in Cornelius' house, this strange, unclean territory, he said to Cornelius and whoever was there with him, he said, "Now I understand what God was trying to teach me. I've been following Jesus, who loved all people, who died for all people. I was down there at the home of another man named Simon, and I had this great vision. I didn't understand it, but now I do." What does he mean, now I do? He had walked for 2 or 3 days. He'd gone into what we might say was an unclean place. He was out of his comfort zone, out of his box, out of his space. He'd gone into the space of somebody else who thought different, who lived different, whose history was different, whose language was different. And said this, "Now I understand what God was trying to say to me. I got out of my space, out of my box, out of my comfort zone, out of my arena where I could control what was said, what was thought, what was done, what was worn, what was read, what was written. I got out of that space. I went into somebody else's space. I met them face to face. I listened to them. And now I understand what God was saying to me, that this man that I once thought was unclean, that I would not have anything to do with, I understand he's a good man. That his ambitions and his desires are very much like mine. He's a seeker after God. He's a man who wants to do right, live right. Now I understand it. This willingness to go into somebody else's turf, somebody else's church, somebody else's school, somebody else's home, somebody else's rally, and listen to them, shake their hand, embrace them, give them a kiss on both cheeks, as they would do in those days. I've thought about this all week. I wanted to reiterate it. That's part of the red letter lesson left over from last week. Maybe you've been thinking about it all week. Maybe you've been walking around all week thinking, what is God trying to say to me? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? What do I need to learn? This is what it means to be a spiritual person, to be a seeking person, to be a growing person, to be a human person. But the Lord has laid on my mind something else today, and I do want to speak to it. And that is what it means to have peace in our turbulent, tense time. What's bothering you today? Well, if you're like most people, you're worried about paying your bills, and you're worried about your kids and your grandkids. You're concerned about your marriage and your family. You're praying for somebody in your family that is struggling with something. Here's my grandson leaving his home, moving 2 states away. He called me yesterday and talked about how wonderful it was to be in Lexington, Kentucky, how beautiful it was, how many opportunities there are for him there. I'm praying for him, just like you pray for your grandchildren or your children, whether they're small or growing teenagers or have kids of their own. Maybe you're praying for your parents. Maybe you're praying for somebody who's gotten caught up in all the political rhetoric and the political roughness of today. And you're trying to understand them. And you're concerned about things. You know, the 10th chapter of Luke tells a story about Jesus going to the home of 2 women, Mary and Martha. They were friends of his. He'd been there many times. But in this particular story, he says to them, you are troubled about many things. That's true of many of us, often. Are you troubled today about something? I want to read a passage of Scripture. Jesus dealt with this all the time. Anxiety, worry, a troubled spirit, an anxious soul. We live in a time of great instability in many ways. We get up every morning and think, what crazy thing is going to be announced today? What crazy thing is going to happen? Who's going to get fired? What's going to get blown up? What's going to get destroyed? How much am I going to have to pay for bread and gas and milk and meat today? How am I going to feed my family? Do I need to go down to the Salvation Army today and eat? The great collection of the teaching of Jesus is what we call the Sermon on the Mount, first chapters of the Gospel of Matthew. This was material that he taught many times, in many places, in many ways, telling many different kinds of stories to illustrate his philosophy of life, his way of living, what he meant by living under the rule or in the kingdom of God. And it was gathered into this collection, 3 chapters, what we call it now, a chapter. It wasn't divided up that way, of course, in the time of Jesus. Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, and about your body, what you will wear. Life is more than food, the body more than clothes. Look at the birds of the air. That is, learn something from the animals. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet their Creator, our Heavenly Father, feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than these birds? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? As a matter of fact, worry takes hours away from our lives. It weakens us in mind, body, and spirit to be anxious about things. Why do you worry about your clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. Not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If God can clothe the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will God not also clothe you and care for you, provide for your needs, protect you, guide you, make you strong? Seek first the kingdom of God. That is, seek to do the right thing, to speak right, to live right, to love right, to confess right. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. There'll be trouble enough tomorrow. I hope you are not burdened today by trouble. I hope you will pray. Trust God to guide you and strengthen you. Give you what you need today. Maybe a revelation about your life and where you shall go, what you shall do. How you're going to pay your bills, how you're going to keep your job, how you're going to resolve a conflict, how are you going to protect your health. I want you to pray for our country, of course, as well. Our country is in many ways, a terrible shape. Living prices are up, and there's a lot of trauma in certain generations. A lot of people have lost their jobs. Thousands and thousands of people have lost jobs. Uncertain about tomorrow. And we need to pray for our leaders. I wrote this week about Joe Biden. He's criticized a lot. He's condemned a lot. He's blamed for a lot, wrongly. I met him once and I wrote about that, about the good things that he did, the good man that he is. Pray for Joe Biden. Pray for Donald Trump. He needs help as well. Even those of us who push back against it. Remember that 2 weeks from today, on June the 14th, which is Flag Day, is another No Kings rally. I'm going to be going. I hope you'll find a flag and take it with you. Join all the people who are unhappy with things that are in our country. We want to gather as is our constitutional right. And we want to say we're not happy with the way things are. We need more assurance that our democracy is working, that peace is coming, that we can live in harmony with one another, looking past boundaries and differences and obstacles. Thank you for tuning in to Sunday in the House this week. I encourage you to go to the website. You can read my article there in praise of Joe Biden. TheMeetingHouse.net. There's lots of stuff there. This show is always there, and you can watch that. You can write me, tell me what's on your mind, push back against something I've said, suggest that I address some issue or some text. Ask a question. Maybe I've raised a concern in your mind and you raise it with me and I will respond to it. God bless you all today. I hope you have a peaceful, pleasant day with people you like. I'm Dwight Moody in the meeting house. Have a good day.